Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to give about 2 to 3 more minutes here to allow additional people to join. So please stand by and we will begin very shortly. All right, well hello everyone and welcome to the webinar, What's New in DraftSight 2026. Thank you all for joining. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. If you have any questions during the presentation, please submit them through the Q&A section in the Zoom webinar. I will address these at the end of the session, and you are also welcome to ask any additional questions at that time as well. This webinar is being recorded and will be available to all registrants the following day. So a link will be shared in a follow-up email, so stay tuned for that. Well, with that, let's get started. To begin, I'd like to provide a brief introduction for those who may not be familiar with me. My name is Brian Vanass, and I am the Technical Sales Manager for the DraftSight team. I have an extensive background in industrial manufacturing, and I've been with the DraftSight team for the past 4 years. I currently manage a small team of highly skilled professionals who all have an extensive background in 2D CAD. The team spends the majority of their time supporting customer engagements while also contributing to the development of DraftSight content that many of you may have seen over the years. So with that background, let's review what we'll be covering in today's webinar. First, we'll start with a full deep dive into the features and enhancements introduced in DraftSight 2026, beginning with the SP0 release, which launched in November of 2025. This release delivers a substantial set of updates, so we'll spend the most time going through these capabilities. From there, we'll shift to Service Pack 1, which was released in February 2026, and review the additional improvements delivered in that update. We will then move into the most recent release, Service Pack 2, or SP2, which just became available this past Monday, so you have the latest information on what's new there. Finally, we'll wrap up with a Q&A session and address as many of your questions as the time allows. All right, let's begin with the 2026 SP0 enhancements and see all that we have to offer. First up is an update to the contextual ribbon for gradients and hatches, which has been redesigned to improve usability and overall efficiency. With this new layout, you now have much quicker access to the most commonly adjusted properties directly within the ribbon. This includes controls for line color, layer assignment, angle, scale, and transparency, all available in a single streamlined interface. Also, as you can see, you have clear visibility into what the gradients and hatches look like, allowing you to stay focused while working with your drawings. Another improvement in the same space is the new Pattern Editor contextual ribbon. Previously, when you double-clicked on a pattern, a dialog box would appear directly within the model space. With this new enhancement, selecting a pattern now brings up a dedicated Pattern Editor contextual ribbon, giving you a much more streamlined and interactive editing experience. From this ribbon, you can quickly define the pattern type and access structured controls for building and modifying your pattern. This includes the columns panel, where you can adjust count and spacing, as well as the rows panel with the same level of control. You also have access to levels, allowing you to define count and spacing across multiple levels, giving more flexibility for complex pattern layouts. All right, let's now look at a demonstration of the new Hatch Editor and Pattern Editor contextual ribbons. First up, we will choose a gradient from the newly displayed icons for each of the hatch and gradient options and place it in the hexagon. Next, we'll change it and choose a honeycomb hatch. We then can make a change to the angle and a change to the scale of the hatch. All right, then we will choose another gradient type, and then within the contextual ribbon, we can easily change the color. From there, let's look at the Pattern Editor ribbon. We do need to first set up the pattern type, so we'll create the pattern, and once the pattern is created, we can click on it, and we see the contextual ribbon displayed showing it is a circular type, and additional modifications can be made to it. Now, let's look at a linear pattern. Once created, we can click on the pattern, giving us access to make detailed changes in the ribbon, or use the various grip points to make more adjustments. Next up, we now provide support for PCX file format or custom print configurations. So, what does this mean? Well, in the past, if you were to print, say, a PDF format, and you went to custom properties to change the layout to landscape, print, and then say later you want to print again, well, your custom properties would default to a portrait layout, and you would have to manually change them again. Now you can easily create those custom print configurations, change the paper size, or select only the paper sizes that apply to you, and then save it as a PCX file to easily select at your next print, saving time. Additionally, with this enhancement, we have the ability to import a PC3 file from AutoCAD and save it as a PCX file, retaining the PC3 print configuration settings. With that all being said, I want to demonstrate here by showing you that you also have the ability to create a custom paper size and save it as a PCX file, so that when you return in the future, you can easily select that file under the printer name dropdown, and then retain your custom setting to easily print. Moving on to our next enhancement, this is one many users have been asking for, is the ability to undock drawing tabs into floating windows. With DraftSight 2026, you are no longer limited to working with a single monitor. You can now take a drawing tab, undock it, and move it onto a separate screen. So this opens up a much more flexible workspace, allows you to take full advantage of multi-monitor setups. So in this demonstration, you'll see how undocking a drawing tab enables a true side-by-side workflow. Each floating window remains fully connected to your active DraftSight session, so you can continue to edit, run commands, and interact with your drawings just as you normally would. This makes it significantly easier to compare, edit, and reference multiple drawings at the same time, without constantly switching between tabs. The result, again, is a more efficient workflow, especially for design review, drawing comparison, and multitasking scenarios. Next up is the ability to customize the CCS icon. While it's a small enhancement, it gives users greater control over their environment and the flexibility to tailor their preferences. All right, let's take a look at this. Whether you're using the 2D or 3D version of the CCS icon, you can now have full control over its appearance. You can adjust the icon size, you can modify its width, and easily scale it up or down. In addition, you can customize the icon's color for both model space and paper space to match your preferences or standards. All right, so next, we've introduced support for ECW files, expanding your ability to work seamlessly with high-resolution raster imagery directly within DraftSight. All right, let's take a look at this demonstration. So we can seamlessly import and display ECW compressed raster images, such as aerial or satellite maps, without slowing down your drawings. So this feature provides the high quality imagery with minimal file size for smoother performance. What we have here is an example of an ECW being brought into DraftSight, where we can then create a rectangular boundary to focus on, for example. And then we can zoom in on a parking lot and demonstrate here an example of placing a custom block of a car to scale, all with the ECW imagery. From ECW files, moving into custom color books. So DraftSight 2026 now introduces support for custom color palettes, also known as color books, giving you access to a wide range of standardized colors directly within your workflow. So these built-in color books, you can quickly select and apply precise shades from widely recognized systems such as Pantone and REL. This ensures a higher level of visual accuracy and consistency across your design without the need for manual color matching. So whether you're working to meet brand standards or industry specifications, this capability streamlines the process and helps eliminate guesswork when it comes to color selection. Now, these ACB files are stored within the Program Files directory, and this is important for a key reason. If, for example, Pantone releases an update or entirely new color book in the future, you can simply download that file and place it into the designated color book folder. Once again, it becomes immediately available for use within DraftSight. So this gives you the flexibility to stay current with the evolving color standards and easily extend your color libraries without any disruption to your workflow. Next up is viewing tiles. In model space, you can now resize those viewing tiles to fit your specific needs. Previously, users were limited to roughly 11 predefined viewports or tile configurations. Now you have the flexibility to define and adjust viewport sizes yourself, enabling layouts that better match your workflow and screen usage. So let's take a quick look at the tile resizing capability. As you can see, we currently have 3 windows or tiles displayed. If you want to prioritize a specific view, such as enlarging this 3D model of the bridge, you can easily do that by adjusting the layout. Simply grab the blue grips between the tiles and drag them to resize each window to your preference. This allows you to quickly focus on the most important view while still keeping the others visible. And of course, this flexibility applies to all tiles, giving you full control over how your workspace is organized. Okay, now moving to a brand new feature, the start page. Historically, launching the application dropped users into a blank workspace, an empty model space. While functional, it offered no options or flexibility in how users begin their day. With the introduction of the start page, that initial friction is removed, providing clear direction and immediate options right from launch. What you see here is the first of 3 tabs, the home page. Next, what you see here is My Setup tab. And the third tab is the Learning page. Okay, so let's take a little walkthrough of the start page. So the Home tab provides access to the following: recent files, sample files, and favorite files. You can adjust how big the thumbnails of those files are displayed. You can sort by last opened or by name of the file. And you can choose a grid display or a list display. And you also have a search box. The Setup tab allows you to choose right from the beginning which workspace you want to start working with. You also have the ability to set up which palettes you want opened and displayed on the side. And additionally, you have quick settings where you have the option to have a crosshair displayed as a cursor. You can choose your language, your pointer size, and whether you start in light mode or dark mode, and an option to choose your model space background color. And finally, the Learn tab, where you have direct access to links to DraftSight.com for information about certification, tutorials, DraftSight support, and others. Next, let's take a look at the expanded set of productivity commands now available under the Powertools tab across all workspaces. In previous versions of DraftSight, this tab included just a few tools such as Drawing Compare, G-Code Generator, Image Tracer, and Topo Tracer. With DraftSight 2026, this area has been significantly enhanced. As you can see, the ribbon is now fully built out with multiple panels, each containing a broad set of commands designed to improve efficiency and streamline your workflows. So this transformation turns Powertools into a truly productive hub, giving you that direct access to DraftSight's advanced capabilities. On the next 2 slides, I want to highlight the breadth of the new commands now available within the Powertools tab. We have over 40 in total. You'll see additions such as Edit Text Case, Edit Text Orientation, and Number Text, which enhance text editing and automation. On the block and geometry side, we now have commands like Get Block Info, Explode Block X, Scale Block, and many more. Continuing with the additional commands, you will also see capabilities such as Align Viewport and Viewport Scale Ratio, which provide greater control when working with layouts and viewports. And we also have tools like Copy Multiple for faster duplication workflows, List Explorer for improved management and visibility into your list routines, and Export Settings to simplify the process of sharing configurations across users or environments. So the key takeaway here is the depth of capability being added. These commands are designed to reduce those manual efforts, automate common tasks, and give you more control directly within your workflow. So a great enhancement to DraftSight 2026. Now, given the number of commands, I will not have time today to demo each one of these. However, we do have a dedicated webinar led by Kevin Land that focuses specifically on these power tool enhancements. In that session, he goes into much greater detail and demonstrates a large portion of these new commands in action. So I highly recommend taking the time to watch that webinar after. You can find this webinar located on our website, DraftSight.com, or simply scan the QR code that I've provided here for you, and it'll take you directly to that webpage. All right, so next up is our support for diesel expressions in fields for DraftSight 2026. Now, with this enhancement, users can now create custom conditions using diesel expressions to perform string, text, and mathematical operations directly within DraftSight. What you're seeing here is an example of how that process works in practice. In this case, we are defining an expression that retrieves the current drawing prefix from the DWG file and places that value directly in the drawing. This opens up powerful opportunities for automation, allowing you to dynamically pull in data, standardize annotations, and reduce manual input across your workflows. Wrapping up the SP0 desktop enhancements for DraftSight 2026, we have an update to data extraction. You can now insert formula columns directly within your extracted data. This allows you to perform calculations and derive values as part of the extraction process, without needing to export and manipulate that data externally. It's a simple but impactful improvement that helps streamline reporting and keeps more of your workflow inside DraftSight. All right, so let's take a look at an example of actually inserting a formula column within the data extraction process. Here, the formula is calculating the total distance from the origin using position X and position Y values. What's important is that this calculated column can be carried through, whether you export the data to a CSV file or insert the table directly into the drawing. So again, this ensures consistency in your data and eliminates that need to do any additional calculations outside of DraftSight. All right, now that we've wrapped up the DraftSight 2026 SP0 enhancements, before moving into SP1, I want to briefly highlight a few key enhancements that we've introduced throughout 2025 that you may not have been aware of. First being, staying with the data extraction topic, we added the ability to include column headers when exporting data to a CSV file. This may seem like a small enhancement, but it significantly improves usability, making the export data easier to understand, share, and work in downstream applications. So taking a quick look at this workflow, the ability to add column headers really enables users to have clear, structured data that is immediately usable and shareable once exported to Excel in this example. All right, moving on to another enhancement being the support for columns in notes. With this enhancement, users now have much greater flexibility when working with columns. You can choose dynamic columns with options for automatic height adjustment or manual define heights, depending on your needs. In addition, you can define static column layouts, selecting a fixed number of columns such as 2, 3, or 4, or go further into custom settings to specify an exact number. On top of that, you have full control over dimensions, including custom height, width, and spacing between columns. This gives you precise control over how your notes are structured and displayed, making it easier to meet both design standards and documentation requirements. Next is the command scale copy. With scale copy, you can combine two common actions into a single step, copying an object and scaling that copy at the same time. You can scale by a specified factor or use a reference length, all while keeping the original object unchanged. Now, for the rename command, we have enhanced it to support wildcard characters. This enhancement introduces powerful batch renaming using those wildcard characters. You can quickly rename layers, blocks, and other objects by searching for patterns and applying changes in a single step. In this example, we are identifying all layer names that begin with the word exterior and automatically updating them to use the abbreviation EX. This makes large-scale renaming tasks fast, consistent, and far more efficient, eliminating the need to manually update each item one by one. Moving on to our next enhancement, which is tied to the reference palette, where we have the ability to select or replace path for XREFs. So with replace path, if a referenced file has been moved or the folder structure has changed, you can quickly update the file location for an existing XREF without needing to reattach it. With select path, if an XREF is missing or unresolved, you can manually browse and assign the correct file. This is especially useful when multiple versions of a file exist, allowing you to confidently select the right one. So together, these improvements make managing external references more efficient and helps reduce downtime caused by broken links. And finally, I want to highlight a feature introduced in FD0 of 2025, the BIM module, available in Premium, Enterprise Plus, and DraftSight Premium on platform only. Some of you may already be familiar with this module and its capability, but I wanted to highlight it again here today for those that might be hearing about it for the first time, as the module can provide unique ability for the 2D CAD user in the AEC industry. So what is the BIM module? Well, it enables users the ability to import both IFC and Revit files directly into the DraftSight environment. Once the model is brought in, you have a clear 3D representation of the building, and from there, you can begin working with it in a very intuitive way. Using the BIM tools, you can create cutting planes directly through the model to automatically generate plan views, section views, and elevation views, all with just a few clicks. Beyond just creating views, you can also extract meaningful data from the model. This includes generating schedules such as door schedules, as well as material takeoffs, and fully customizable data tables, all driven directly from the BIM data itself. On top of that, you can apply intelligent labeling throughout your drawings. For example, you can quickly add door labels, window labels, labels for walls or rooms, helping to standardize your documentation and reduce manual input. You also have the ability to apply dimension chains and control how these dimensions are displayed, giving you flexibility to align with your company's drafting standards. And because all of this is happening within DraftSight, you can take the generated views, enhance them with additional 2D detailing, and place them directly in sheets using your company's standard title blocks, keeping everything within a single, efficient workflow. And finally, one of the key advantages of the BIM module is its ability to stay in sync with design changes. If the original IFC or Revit file is updated, you can simply re-import the model, and those updates will propagate through to your existing drawings, saving significant time and effort in keeping documentation current. All right, well, that wraps up the features and enhancements included in DraftSight 2026 SP0. So let's now move into what was introduced in SP1 of DraftSight 2026. First up are a few enhancements to quick inputs. Okay, so let's walk through where these settings are located so you can easily enable, disable, or adjust them based on your preferences. So for quick inputs, let's navigate to Options, then go to User Preferences, Drafting Options, Quick Input. As you can see, we now have 3 additional options behind the original pointer input settings. The first is Dimension Input, where you can toggle it on or off and choose between displaying 1 or 2 input boxes. Next is Quick Prompts, which can also be enabled or disabled. And finally, you now have the ability to customize the appearance of the Quick Input tooltip. Now, let's take a look at how these enhancements function in practice. Dimension inputs are available for commands such as line, polyline, arc, circle, ellipse, and offset. All right, so we'll choose a polyline. We'll start the polyline and extend it up. And as you can see right away, we have dashed lines for angle and infinity lines. We'll choose 10 units for the length of the line to start. We'll go back and select it and choose an endpoint and select stretch. Now you can extend that up like normal to wherever you like, but if we choose to tab over twice, we'll have a input box where we can actually type the additional length we want to add to it. So we'll type in 10, and then we'll go back to that line, and as you can see, its total length is 20 units. So let's move to a circle. We'll extend that out, and if we tab and then hit the down arrow, we can choose diameter, switching from radius. Next up, we're going to move over to quick prompt. Here we'll type in rectangle. Normally we could specify the first corner and extend out, but we'll type in rectangle again, and then if we hit the down arrow, we're given a list of choices. So we'll select center as our starting point and be able to extend the rectangle. We can easily type in 10 by 5 to create the dimensions. Next, if we type in fillet, we can do the same process where we down select and choose the radius for the fillet and type in 2 and complete the radiuses for this rectangle. Additionally, as you can see here, you have a certain size for the display next to the cursor. So if you go back into drafting options, quick input, and then select quick input tooltip appearance, we can make that size bigger or smaller, and we can change the transparency. So we'll apply, make those changes, hit OK, and give you a representation of what that looks like. So as you can see, now that's a larger size, and if we hit the down arrow, you can barely see segments there display. So some nice little enhancements to quick inputs, and also showing you where those reside in the options dialog for DraftSight. Next, we have two back-to-back enhancements for DraftSight Mechanical. The first focuses on dimension alignment. So let's take a look at this command in action. You can access it from the Dimensions panel under Mechanical Annotate tab. This command allows you to align linear, ordinate, or angular dimensions based on a selected reference. To use it, you simply select your base dimension first, and then any additional dimensions you choose will align to that reference. As shown here, you can also launch the command directly from the command line using am-dim-align. In this example, once the linear dimension of 60 is selected as the base, the subsequent dimensions automatically align to it. This makes it much easier to maintain clean, consistent dimensioning across your drawings with minimal effort. The second enhancement for DraftSight Mechanical is Dimension Insert. This command is also located in the Dimension panel under the Mechanical Annotate tab. With Dimension Insert, you can take an existing linear or angular dimension and split it into two separate dimensions. To do this, you can start by selecting the base dimension, in this case, the 120 linear dimension, and then define the split by selecting the extension line point. So this allows for a quick and efficient way to break down dimensions without having to recreate them. All right, coming to our final enhancement for SP1 in DraftSight 2026 is the ability to batch save folders to the platform while preserving the original folder structure as a bookmark. It's important to note that this capability is specific to the 3D experience DraftSight offers. This includes DraftSight Premium, DraftSight Mechanical, and the Collaborative Designer for DraftSight roles only. So let's take a look at this workflow. This enhancement allows you to take an entire local folder of DraftSight files and upload them to 3D Experience platform in one step. maintaining the same organization you had with your folders. When saved as bookmarks, the structure remains intact, making it easy to navigate and access your data on the platform. As you see when you select Batch Save to 3D Experience, a dialog box is presented where you can choose your folder to upload, choose an existing bookmark for it to upload to, and then check for duplicates, and then click Save. All right, now we have officially made it to our last section of the webinar, where we will cover the enhancements that have just arrived in the latest release of DraftSight 2026 SP2. And again, SP2 was just released on Monday. So first, we have a new capability, the ability to export step files. As you may recall, not too long ago, we introduced the ability to import step files into DraftSight. Now, with this enhancement, we are completing that workflow by enabling step export as well. You'll find the step export option under the Export tab, and you can also run it directly from the command line using Export Step. As shown here, we can take an industrial 3D design and successfully export it as a step file, making it easy to share geometry with other CAD systems and downstream processes. Next, we have an enhancement to the status bar. With SP2, you now have the ability to customize how the status bar is displayed. Previously, you were limited to small icons to indicate whether certain features were on or off. Now you can tailor that experience to better suit your preferences. Within Options, under the System Options and Display, you can choose to show icons only, labels only, or a combination of both labels and icons. While it may seem like a small update, it has a meaningful impact on usability. Icons alone can sometimes be unclear, but adding labels make it much easier to quickly identify and toggle the correct features, improving both clarity and efficiency in your workflow. Continuing on, we have an enhancement to the spell checker. While the core workflow of the tool remains the same, we have added support for additional dictionaries through the option to use Hunspell. If you navigate to the spell checker settings under Options, System Options, and General, you will now see the option to enable Hunspell. This is especially useful for users who do not have Microsoft Office installed, as it provides an alternative source for dictionary support. By default, Hunspell includes two dictionaries, English United States and English United Kingdom, which you can see under the main dictionary files location. What I will show next is how you can expand beyond those defaults. You can download additional Hunspell dictionary files from online and place them into the dictionary folder within the support file path. In this example, I've added Portuguese dictionary files, specifically the .aff and the .dic files into that location. Once those files are in place, you can return to the main dictionary files setting and select Portuguese as your active dictionary. Now, when you run the spell checker command, it will use the Portuguese dictionary. And within that same dialog, you can easily switch back to another dictionary, such as English United States, whenever needed, giving you flexibility across different languages. Now, the remaining 8 enhancements are all specific to DraftSight Mechanical. The first is the ability to calculate the moment of inertia for profiles. When you launch the command am inertia prof, you are presented with a dialog where you can select a predefined profile. Alternatively, if you already know the profile, you can easily enter it directly through the command line. From there, you simply define the X and the Y lengths for this example of a rectangular and complete the command. DraftSight will then automatically generate a table in the model space containing all the calculated results. So this makes it quick and efficient to perform engineering calculations directly within your drawing environment without needing to rely on any external tools. Next up is the dimension join command. With this capability, you can combine two dimensions of the same type into a single dimension. This provides a clean and efficient way to consolidate your dimensioning. It's especially useful for tidying up drawings, reducing clutter, and improving overall consistency and reliability in your documentation. Moving on to our next mechanical enhancement, dimension check. With this command, which is found in the Dimension Tools panel, you will be provided with two options: highlight or edit dimensional text overrides. So as being shown here, if you select highlight, it will highlight all the dimensions that are overwritten. Then you can select edit, where you can cycle through each one to make your edits. And next we have dimension edit. Here we have the ability to edit multiple dimensions at the same time. So here, select your base dimension of 1.75, then select the additional dimensions you want to change to that base dimension, and then select Finish. We now will continue on to dimension stretch. This command allows you to resize objects by stretching or shrinking a linear of symmetric dimensions. So here, to execute the command, you need to specify the dimension text and then enter in the new dimension text, followed by creating a crossing window over the portion of the object that you want to stretch. Next up is the new Format panel within the Power Dimension ribbon. This enhancement gives you much greater control over how your dimensions are displayed, allowing for more precise formatting and consistency across your drawings. For example, you can quickly return rotated dimension text back to its default position, helping maintain clean and standardized annotations. You also have the ability to slant extension lines by a specific angle, which can be useful in more complex layouts. In addition, you can define how dimensions behave when they are moved away from their original placement, giving you better control over reliability and alignment. And if needed, you can rotate dimension text to a specific angle to match your design intent or company standards. So overall, this panel centralizes key formatting options, making it easier to fine-tune dimensions without interrupting your workflow. We have also expanded the Edit Notes dialog with the addition of a mechanical symbol library. This gives you quick, built-in access to a wide range of standard mechanical symbols directly within your Notes workflow. Instead of manually inserting or recreating symbols, you can now select them directly from the dialog and place them with consistency. This is especially valuable for maintaining GD&T compliance across your drawings, helping ensure that annotations are standardized, accurate, and aligned with industry requirements. Overall, it streamlines the annotation process while reducing the risk of errors and inconsistencies. And finally, coming to the end, we have introduced a new nesting manager within DraftSight Mechanical. This capability is designed to optimize how parts are arranged on raw material, helping you make more efficient use of available space. With the nesting manager, you can organize and position components to minimize material waste and improve overall layout efficiency. The nesting manager palette gives you full control over the setup. You can define the quantity of parts, specify the dimensions of the stock material, and set parameters such as minimum part clearance and plate clearance. So this provides a more structured and controlled approach to preparing parts for manufacturing, whether you're working with sheet metal, profiles, or other cut-based workflows. The result is an automated process that improves material utilization, reducing waste, time savings during preparation, and ultimately helping streamline the process from design to production. Well, that officially concludes all of the enhancements and features currently available in DraftSight 2026. Before we move into the Q&A session to wrap up today's webinar, I want to quickly highlight what's coming next in our webinar series. On May 28th, Kevin Land will be hosting a session focused on DraftSight network licensing. In this webinar, he will walk through the full life cycle of managing network licenses using the Solid Network License Manager, from initial setup and configuration to real-world administration. He will cover best practices for distributing licenses across your organization, reclaiming licenses from inactive users, and enabling flexible workflows for users working across multiple machines. This session will also address common challenges, troubleshooting techniques, and practical tips to ensure performance and availability in your licensing environment. If you are responsible for managing licenses or supporting users, this will be a highly valuable session to attend. So registration will be open after my webinar concludes, and you can easily sign up at DraftSight.com. Well, with that, let's move into our Q&A session.